I was in Ireland at the weekend and witnessed the resounding vote in favour of liberalising their abortion laws. The size of the majority for change, 66% to 34%, has almost certainly put paid to the current restrictions on abortion in Ireland forever, particularly because the young voted 87% in favour of change. In contrast, the problem with the Brexit vote in Britain is that the majority in favour of leaving the EU was too small, just 52% to 48%. This means that instead of a referendum sorting out an issue forever, as in Ireland, we've got the opposite in Britain. And with the young so disproportionately in favour of Remain, while older people back Leave, the issue of the EU is not sorted at all. And remember, time is on the side of the young. I don't like referendums much, but if we are to have them in the future, then we should at least ensure that change requires a minimum of, say, 60% support. That way, the losers are more likely to accept the result.
Greg, it sounds like you want to set the bar so high that common, old, uneducated people don't get a chance to change government policy. And,
I didn't call them common, old, uneducated people.
That sounds
I called them older people, which they overwhelmingly were.
That's the implication. And Brexit isn't not being settled because there was a 4% difference. Brexit isn't being settled because of a bunch of elitist businessmen and politicians who think they know better than the British people. That's why. But let me just point out, you mentioned the 4%. 4% represents 1.269 million people. That's a lot of people, that 4%. But you're talking about if the number was big enough, would it make a difference? Let's look at the Scottish referendum. Back in 2014, that was won by 55 to 45. That's 10%. Recent polls say there's now a swing a bigger swing to stay in the UK of 12%. So why, in which case, if using your argument, is the SNP now banging on about the second referendum when more people want to stay in the UK now than they did before?
Because
no number will be big enough.
Because they're perfectly entitled to bang on about it. That's politically what they stand for.
It's not what the people want.
No, but then if there is another second referendum, I hope it is a number as big as 60-odd%.
No, they will ever be big enough. No number will ever be big enough.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you were in Ireland, as I was at the weekend, where if you went around the streets of the bit of Cork that I was in, you would have thought, this is quite close. So the number of placards up
Scottish referendum was the same.
Were everywhere. And yet, the result was overwhelming. And what was interesting, was the number of young people who were flying home, who were at university, who were flying home to say, the island has changed. Now, all I'm saying is, what you've now got is a situation, and everybody I talked to, even those who were against the result, said, it's done. This is over now. And it seems to me that's not what we've got with Brexit. And I'm not making the argument for or against Brexit. All I'm saying is, look, we needed a bigger majority if you want to get it settled for life.
Winning is winning in this story. But let me say one thing and then I'll yield. Let me say one thing and then I will yield. I forgot what it was now.
Okay. Can I bring in a quote from Nigel Farage? This is a quote from May 2016. In a 50-48 referendum, this would be unfinished business by a long way. If the Remain campaign win 2/3 to 1/3, that ends it. Funny how that's no longer the case.
If you feel strongly enough about an issue, no number's ever going to end.
No, I'm not arguing. This is not an argument about Brexit. This is saying only to say you need a big enough majority if you want to put these things to bed.
But Greg, my point is, here is Nigel Farage basically more or less saying what you're saying. And then when it goes his way, this no longer stands.
But the Scots
so I bet you, Carol, this is where you'd be on.
The Scots had a big enough majority and it hasn't ended the issue.
Greg, do I take it that the magical number is 60% from what you're saying?
I'm suggesting 60%, but there's a number somewhere that says this is overwhelming.
Suppose, God forbid, George Soros and everyone else has their way and we have another Brexit referendum. Please, God, we doesn't have. If it came as say 55 plays 45 to Remain, you'd want to go again.
Well, it's about change. No, it's about change. At the moment,
don't be a politician.
At the moment,
Greg
we are in the EU, but I don't think 55-45 will be enough to end the debate, and that's the problem.
So you'd want it'd have to be 60 plays 40.
I think, yeah, you'd need that.
We're never going to get it.
It was quite interesting. There's a quote from Theresa May at the weekend which said, "The Irish referendum was an impressive show of democracy which delivered a clear result." Well, Brexit didn't do that.
Exactly.
And when she came and said Brexit means Brexit, actually, it didn't deliver a clear result. And that's the problem. And particularly because the young, in Ireland, the young overwhelmingly voted out. Right? The young in this country didn't.
Yeah, they did. 65%. 65%.
Can we let someone else have a go, Carol?
Yeah, as everybody knows, I'm completely, appalled by the result of the Brexit referendum. But we can't now say, we didn't like the result, let's have another one, because the evidence shows that the problem with the e-referendum was holding it at all, because prior to June 2016, the issue had very, very little saliency outside some zealots in the Tory party who banged on and banged on and banged on. So David Cameron announced that we were going to have a referendum in 2013. We had it in 2016. It was predicated on the Tories having a majority. Cameron thought he was going to get off the hook because he was in coalition. Then he got his majority in 2015. He had to hold the referendum. And we've been obsessed about Brexit ever since. It was having the referendum that had created the enormous drama around the EU that had never heretofore existed in this country.
And can I just
say we can't
on,
just say we've got to have another referendum to sort the matter out, because it will not.
You can't change the rules of most golf clubs or anything like it, or most associations, if you haven't got 60% or 66%.
I agree with you on a super. We need, if we're going to have another referendum,
that's what Cameron should have done in the first place.
Even I'm now not convinced about. We have to have a super majority result. Otherwise, as you say, it's going to carry on.
Let's just put to bed this young people didn't vote. 65% of 25 to 38-year-olds voted. 36% of 18 to 20.
Vote.
You said they did.
I said they disproportionately voted to remain. Yeah. That's what I said.
OK. But
and they did disproportionately vote, which means as this lot die and this lot get older, there's going to be a majority in this country for re-entry.
Well, that's
and actually,
the
moment Brexit happens. The moment Brexit happens and we've got all that, I suspect the campaign to rejoin will start almost immediately.
Let's underscore what Rachel. Let's underscore what Rachel just said and listen to Conservative John Penrose, who backed Remain, speaking in September 2016 about ignoring the view of the British people in the referendum.
Part of the backing for the Leave campaign was this cry of frustration at our democracy. And I can think of nothing more dangerous, nothing more corrosive, if we in this place say that we are not listening and we stick our fingers in our ears and refuse to honour the decisive decision, the decisive verdict, which has been rendered unto us.
And June, bringing you into what Rachel said, and I respect the fact that you think Britain took a wrong turn. I absolutely get it. But that MP is right. It would be effectively an absolutely, to use his word, corrosive act, would it not?
Yeah, and I think the problem is Cameron made the mistake in not actually having some sort of threshold in the first place.
But
what we're saying now is, aside from referendum, is really what we want to make sure is that the people decide on the terms of the deal.
Well, you want that. I don't know that everybody wants.
What's interesting is that, remember, the original referendum on the EU, on being in the common market.
Oh, I couldn't vote in that, so I can't.
65%, I think, voted in favour.
Yeah.
And the argument, coming on the other side, the argument for change was that the EU changed, that the EU was not the same as the common market, and that we'd becoming part of something very different without ever having a referendum, and that was the argument for it. But I just honestly think this will never go away.
But Carol's is a good point. We'd have had to redo the Scottish referendum, Greg. Where would it? Because that was 55 plays 45.
45.
Yeah, but he wants a 60 plays 40. But this would never end,
Greg.
Greg.
Retrospectively change a referendum.
No. But what I'm saying is, under Greg's law, under Dyke's law, the Scottish referendum. I'm sorry, guys, you've got to do it again.
You've got to have You've got to have a 60%. Oh, at 55. But you've got to be whatever you think is 52-48 is not a
win is a win is a win. You're a sports bloke.
No,
a win is a win.
Not on an issue like this.
No,
not on an issue
setting
like
the
this.
threshold smacks of political cowardice. It really does. If you have a 60% thing on something, you don't need a referendum. Many people, the thing that upsets me, many people who voted in that referendum, it was the first time they thought their voices would be heard. It was the first time they thought they could make a difference. You know, no safe seats, no tactical voting. They wanted their voice to be heard, and it hasn't been, and that's been the tragedy.
And I am 100%.